evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me as always is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo. How you doing, J.P.?
I'm doing good. I stayed up late last night, though, watching
I did too.
the Trump. I very seldom make it through it, but it was so much fun.
It was fun.
I don't think, the sad part is the Democrats have no heart. You know, they talked about a kid, 13 years old, had 13 brain surgeries, and they never even acknowledged that. And I just think, you know, you can put your politics aside for 20 seconds to honor that kid. And there were a couple of others, too.
There was a whole bunch of reasons to reach across the aisle and be gracious.
Yep.
And they didn't take it.
No.
There were plenty of opportunities. And the president even said, hey, you know, stand with us, clap with us. These successes are yours too, right? He
Well, his comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, his comment was, "There's nothing I can do to make these people stand, maybe smile, or maybe applaud." And then he turned and started talking just to the Republicans at that point. So he made his point, and I just think it was.
I think he did a great job.
Yeah, I do too.
And then all the liberal outlets did the same old canned responses. It's incredible. Anybody could watch that entire thing from beginning to end and then have an entire session on CNN about how divisive his speech was.
Oh, yeah. The most divisive speech
it.
ever, they said, which is, I don't, you know, it's just, you know, they're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep winning. I mean, I don't know why they don't understand that.
Well, and we keep saying it too. We keep saying
we do.
They haven't learned their lesson, right? And no one on their side is asking, well, what lesson is that? Right?
Exactly.
We're giving them all the clues they need.
Yep, exactly.
All right. As usual, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club, the oldest sports shooting club in New Hampshire at 1732 Lakeshore Road. The membership meeting is tonight at 7 p.m. directly after this show. The next training is Defensive Handgun 1. That is a fun class. That is an advanced level class. You must have taken some of the beginner classes in order to get into Defensive Handgun 1. It will take place on the 22nd of March. You can get information and register for that class at wilsonhillpistol.org. If you're watching this on the internet, that web address is at the bottom of the screen. We have some guests today,
nice.
JP. All the local elections are taking place next Tuesday here in New Hampshire. And we have some candidates running in Goffstown. We have Jessica Putin. Jessica Putin. I'm sorry, I mess it up to ask my viewers. I mess it up all the time.
Not Putin.
And Brian Templeton. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're good.
Doing awesome.
So, I prefaced this show with a teaser online that we're going to be talking about local Goffstown stuff. But this applies to almost every town. The issues that you guys are running on applies to darn near every town in New Hampshire. Absolutely. We've got a problem in New Hampshire with spending and with just out of control, I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back business in our towns. Yeah. So tell us, Jessica, what are you running for?
I am running for Select Board. So that is the governing body of the town.
And so how many selectmen are on Goffstown's board?
Right now we have 6.
So we have 6.
But there's 2 openings because they stagger them.
There's 2 openings at the moment.
Yes.
And are the incumbents running?
No.
No?
They're open seats.
Complete open seats.
Nice.
So I'm actually running with the Honorable Fred Plett.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
I know Fred.
So he's my running mate.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so that's a strategy that's we've seen has been successful around the state the last few cycles.
Everyone knows Fred.
Yeah, they do.
Is running as a group, running as a group together.
Well, I mean, collaboration always benefits everyone.
Unless they don't like somebody on the ticket. then you're in trouble. But
I think
we don't have that problem.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I mean,
it's excellent,
met most of these people when how I got into it was I put a post up after a budget committee, and I said, if the budget is this, and I did some math out on a paper, it's going to go up
Don't do
X
math in front
amount.
of liberals. They don't understand that.
Yeah, and then just hearing, people on fixed incomes and seniors, and
Yep.
I'm a single mom. I worked really hard to buy my house 9 years ago, and now my taxes are almost more than my mortgage payment.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that everyone in New Hampshire is talking about. It's something you're worried about, and I understand it because you can only make so much money before there's nothing left.
True.
So
That's great.
So is there a particular issue that kind of got you fired up to run? Obviously, you pulled out some issues with the budget and whatnot.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Like,
So my biggest thing, and there's some people that use this as a buzzword, it's not for me, transparency. These are our tax dollars, so we deserve to see exactly where they're going. And yes, we can do the right to know requests, but why do we have to go through so much? Other towns have posted their check registers. We now have it as warrant articles to be voted on too. And I think we need to see, especially with purchasing,
Yep.
who are we giving these contracts to? Are they our town members? I mean,
So do you have a? Do you have to get? You have to get 3 quotes for a particular deal.
so in Goffstown, you only need 2.
Well, I think
And they
if,
can be handwritten or a phone call.
Wow, that's
so it
crazy.
doesn't even need to be on paper.
Yep.
So I think you should ask Fred this. There's a RSA that the state requires you to have 3 bids based on the amount of money you're spending. So I would check with Fred.
Well, over 25,000, I have to put it out to bid.
Right.
So
So
another
you don't bid
issue.
under that?
No.
So something $10,000, they just sign a check.
Well, they're supposed to get 2 quotes.
Right.
But how do we know? It's
Yeah.
very hard, and the town page is very. It's not super easy to just click. There's no link public notice. I mean, you can see when I've looked up the bids, there's only a couple on there, and you can say the entire history, but it doesn't equal what it should.
So you're right, Josh, because these are issues in every single town.
Yeah.
We're having that problem in Deering right now, where in the past, when I was a selectman, I served 2 terms, and with a woman who served 4 terms. She's running again for the first time in I don't know how many years, but she has the knowledge, the knowledge that's needed, to make sure these things go straight. So you're on the right track, I think.
Yeah. And I think just giving the opportunity to the people in town. I mean, we have so many blue collar workers and companies, small
Yep.
businesses, and I think if we make it more publicized what exactly we're looking for in the different departments, whether it's a landscaping company or a painter, that we give our residents, our taxpayers, the opportunity to benefit
Yep.
from our own town that we're paying our taxes into. So I think that's really important too.
What about the school? What percentage of your budget is school budget? Do you know? 65,
it's-
70%?
yeah,
It's pretty
it's-
high in
yeah.
most towns.
63 the last time I
It
heard a
is
number.
higher than the town budget.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
So I'm still stuck on the check register and transparency. You say other towns are actually post their check register, so
Yep.
we know who was written a check and for how much.
Exactly.
And if you had a question about it, you could go to the select board or to the town administrator and say, hey, why did so-and-so get a check for $5,000? And they can say, oh, we have a contract here, we have this, or this is why.
Yep.
And Goffstown does not do that.
No, not right now. It is on the ballot. So the town article on it, the current select board said no problem, we're for it. The school, however, is all against it.
Yeah, there you go.
And their reasoning is security and privacy. And in my mind, government shouldn't have privacy.
No.
Well, the privacy that they're talking about is the privacy of the personal privacy of the students and their families. But So, by the way, my wife and I were the ones who put those petitions in. We got the signatures, and on the
For the warrant article?
for both warrant articles, one for the town and one for the school board.
So you're running for school board?
I'm running for school board, yeah.
Apparently,
And so when the articles were submitted, the very next school board meeting, when I knew they were going to see it, I went to that, and I listened, and I heard their concerns, but it was said right from the get-go from the business manager, business administrator of the district, that that information would have to be redacted, right, if they put the check up there. But and for me personally, the goal here was not to betray the privacy of students and their families. If names needed to be redacted because they paid for a certain, I don't know, say bus to pick up a certain child or something like that.
Right.
But I don't know why that would be in there anyway. If they're just paying for for the bus,
I
why
feel
would they
like-
It's
put
like
in?
a check.
I feel like
register in your
that's a little
checkbook.
bit over the top. I feel like that's the school board and the whole, and we see this all across the country. I mean, it's exactly why President Trump is advocating the elimination of the education department. And the new Secretary of Education, what did she say during her speech? She said, I'm here to oversee the dismantling. I mean, she basically said that I'm here
Get
to
rid of my job,
oversee
basically.
the final mission of the
Yeah.
Department of Education. There's an element of power that school administrators have, and part of it is the secrecy, right? And we've seen that in all aspects of the schools. We've seen it in this business of schools having policies to hide gender transition in children from their own parents. But as far as the check register goes and the privacy of the students, I personally had a special needs child in the Goffstown school system, and that child needed a special transportation, and eventually he was transported to a special school out of district at the cost of the town because he needed it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a secret. As a parent, as a student, all the other students and all the teachers in the school knew that this child was no longer in that school. They knew that child.
But you're not writing it. They weren't writing a check to you or your child. They were writing it to the transportation, to the other school.
Exactly.
So their name wouldn't be there.
Exactly. So
It's-
I'm
that
having
argument is just-
problem. First off, it's not a secret that my child is a special needs child in this district, and it's also not a secret that my child has services that require the school district to take some of their funds and pay it to these other entities. I don't understand why the secrecy. That's what I'm like. There's
don't
when there's a
either.
child that needs, I would think that would be a good thing. Hey, we are taking care of our children who need it.
Exactly.
And I had a child as well in the same situation as you at Goffstown High School that ultimately ended up having to be bussed out of district. He was one of my adopted kids, and he had a lot of childhood trauma, and he had a lot of issues. So, for me, the reason why I decided to run for office was because
Oh, and by the way, you're running for school board.
for school board.
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Brian Templeton.
Yeah,
I'm
Brian.
just going to say, yeah, we never did do that, did we?
We just got right into it.
Yeah, so for me, what happened was a year ago at the deliberative session, a year ago,
That's when I met you.
Yeah.
That's what I was. I told you. You were very tentative in standing up and speaking. I had been through these things, and I see you, and I'm like, this guy. He's a little tentative, but you were right on point. I was very impressed. But that
the
was
thing
your first
that,
meeting.
that not only was that the first deliberative session I'd ever been to in my life, but the day before that, I didn't even know what a deliberative session was. Somebody else in the town came to
SB2.
us and said, "You're going to the deliberative session because we had been talking about the taxes,
Yep.
And I'm kind of ashamed to say that before the taxes really became out of control, my wife does the bills in our house, so she's like, these taxes are out of control, and so that was what spurred us on to start paying attention. Because I'm a little ashamed to say that before that, I was one of the citizens that didn't pay attention. I didn't vote in town elections. I was too busy doing my own thing. And then I went to this deliberative session, and then I'm in there, and I'm like, oh, so this is what it is. And I saw the divided line down the middle of the auditorium, and I was like, wow. And then I realized loudest voice wins. I'm like, this is how this works. And so that was why I said, okay, I got to get up and say something here, you know. So
Good for you.
after
That's
that
good.
was when I thought to myself, okay, Brian, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So I decided that I wanted to step up. And ultimately, for me, I knew it had to be school board because we've had quite a few kids in schools, different schools, and there are certain things that have been happening in the schools that have really, really bothered me. And one of the things is this thing that you were talking about, how there seems to be this culture of kind of like, don't ask questions, don't question what we do.
Yeah.
You know, we'll take the tax dollars, but don't be asking us questions and trying to be involved.
Right.
Now, to be fair to them, they did provide help for my son, but that's not enough. You know, to me, we have to keep always going forward. And Superintendent Balke said at the school deliberative session that special needs, you know, that has gone up and up and up every year. More and more and more kids have emotional and mental problems.
Sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, while he's saying it, why are we not asking why?
Right.
Why are we not asking why? I mean, you know, we all had problems growing up, but we kind of had to get through what we had to get through. When I was growing up, it's like, you got to deal with what you got to deal with. But I think now it's like, the thought process is, I don't know, they're all
there's a
victims or
combination
something.
of that's it. There's a combination of the victimhood society that's being created, a combination of let's just push them through and get through with it. You see that girl in Connecticut who's suing her school district. She graduated with honors and is going to university, and she got to university and she realized that she can't read or write. But she graduated with honors and was able to get into.
I didn't see that.
Like so now she's suing the school district that she came out of, and it's that whole attitude of, yeah, we really don't care what's going on, and you know, and then you couple that with, okay, why are we having a mental health issue here? Because, like you said, when we were children, the percentage of children in special needs programs was what, 3-5%? I mean, it was
that.
Yeah.
it was
probably not even that high.
it was infinitesimal compared to today, and now we're looking at 20-30% of every class is special needs in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so the question is why?
And I think there's no one answer to that, but I think the question should be asked. Like, one of the things for me that I've been thinking about a lot since he's made that statement, and I've been asking myself that question is I think that, you know, the advent of these phones and social media is a big part of that.
It absolutely is.
When I was
agree.
growing up, I had to deal with what was in front of me. You know, maybe some things were on the news, or you had to deal with your parents having a fight or something like that. You know what I mean? But children today have the entire world flashed in their eyes
Yep.
constantly, every single day. And if they're not being completely and totally supervised, who knows what they're seeing? And their young minds, they don't know how to process that stuff. Not to mention that, you know, bullying is now 24/7 because you can't go
on
home
your
from
phone.
school and get away from being bullied
Right.
when they're posting stuff about you on Facebook all night long.
Or
Right.
group text. I've had that. I
Yeah.
have a 6th grader.
So Brian, how many people are on the school board?
I believe it's 9.
Nine?
I think it's 9.
And is someone running against you, or?
So I think there's 2 incumbents rerunning,
okay.
and 2 that are running for the open seat.
And what's the length of the term?
So I'm running for 3 years. There's
Okay.
3 of us that are running for 3,
Yep.
and there's also a 1-year slot.
Okay. Yep. And you're running for 3 years, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So back to this business of the special education program is just getting larger and larger and larger, and
I think it's just over 30% of the entire school budget.
right.
Wow.
And we're
Really?
talking about, we both had children go through that particular district and needed to be bussed out, and that's becoming more and more common. This idea of special needs. What do you think of? Once a population gets large enough, it's not special anymore. What do you think of these schools? Instead of treating this population as special needs, let's treat it as part of the population. Like, so you have to adjust all of your training to focus on this larger group rather than having 1 or 2 special educators that take care of the entire school. Right? Now you should be thinking about this being more normalized.
I guess. I mean, it's something to think about going forward. Because
Because
there's
if you
also
treat
a
it
lot
that
of
way, it's
staff
gonna
that
cost
works
less
that
money,
angle,
right?
Works that side. There's a lot of staff that works that side.
Yeah.
That's more staff.
It's a aggravating problem, but what it does lead to is the school boards start asking for more money, and they use that as an excuse, I think. But we
Well,
also see money going into programs that, hey, maybe if we're really that strapped for cash, we don't need to be doing this program. And then the other one that kind of gets to me is our superintendent of schools is the second highest paid superintendent in the state. We've only got, 5 schools in Goffstown? Whereas Nashua has-
Manchester.
Manchester, yeah.
they have superintendents who make less money, and they have double, triple the number of schools that we have. I mean, there's a lot of wasted money going on in the
Well, on
school
that
board.
point, the administrators, it's getting really top heavy. And they say they have to hire, deans of students or
Yeah.
administrators because of the behavioral problem. And my daughter's had issues with bullying when she first started. And I said, okay, well, talk to your teacher. Let's try to figure it out. I'm not one of those moms that calls the teacher and complains. I kind of let the teacher be the teacher and have her figure it out. And I said, what happened? And she goes, well, they just talked to her. They talked to her. And I said, what? In my day, if you were bad, you'd go to the principal, and the next day you're suspended.
Yeah.
There's the accountability. I don't know where it is.
My understanding is that we have 2 principals.
Well, so the principal, we have I guess it's the assistant or associate principal, because he's going to be the principal when our current principal retires after this school year.
So we're currently paying 2 principals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And an SAU director, probably, right?
So SAU and the administrative portion of the pie is over $2 million.
Wow. How many SAU members are there? Do you know?
I
I don't know.
Yeah, in our town, we started with 2, and there's now 15. And we're in a co-op. It's not. We don't even have we have no schools in our town.
Oh my gosh.
It's all part of Goffstown,
Yeah.
and part of Hillsborough. And so I've had some issues with the SAU people more than once, and yet they keep expanding that group. And we had 3, I think. One, did copying, The other one was like a secretary writing stuff for the SAU director, and he was getting whatever. And now, that's crazy.
So
It's like-
the administrative part of the budget is over $2 million.
So they also have a piece of the pie. I actually brought this with me.
I was hoping you
it
brought
actually
pie.
shows it in here, so I can tell you the exact. So, school board, SAU, and other, 2.349 million. And then they tied in building, administrative, and fiscal, which is 3.7.
Wow.
Special ed is 13, regular is 21 million. It's just,
Look at that size of that special ed pie.
Yeah, it's almost the
that's pretty
size
big now,
of the
right?
regular ed pie, right? There's really not much. I mean, that's over a third of the budget there. And my guess is that this is the same breakdown all over the state, right? I've heard from all the folks that come through here that the school budget is over 60% of your taxes in every town. And then you have these multi-million-dollar administrative costs. And that's all, these are all contracts that are negotiated by the select board? Like, who negotiates the administrative salaries of the school board? Or of
school board.
The school administration?
The school board
So
does.
the school board does.
Yeah. And there's 2 school boards for SAU 19
And why do we have 2 school boards?
because they also cover New Boston.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they encompass both towns, so there's 2 school boards. And
Yep.
And so how does
I
this,
see that.
Oh, yeah.
how does the breakdown of New Boston's portion of the,
I don't know.
Of the
I don't know
taxes,
that,
so-
but I'm looking forward to getting much more information. I mean, I don't make any bones about saying that this is new to me, you know. But I'm the type of guy that's
just like
willing to roll
anything,
up
they're
my
not going to
sleeves.
give up the information until you're on the board.
Exactly.
And maybe not even then. Who knows? And that's the thing for me is like one of the things I want people to know is that, see, I don't really see a solution to a lot of these problems unless we can get these folks to kind of say, yeah, let's start working together on this, you know, because when it comes to school boards, okay, what are we talking about here? We're talking about children's education, okay? We're not talking about town contracts and things like that, which are all important. But this is the future of our country, right? Kids and them getting they getting an education to be able to move forward in this world, which is like with the advent of AI and robotics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to be less and less jobs. You know, so what I want to put forth as my message on the school board with my fellow board members and then convey to SAU 19 and to the taxpayers is we have to start working together on this. We have to end this divide thing, and I don't know if it's possible. It's so crazy out there. I mean, Jessica will tell you, we're just for town election, and the division out there and the craziness on social media, the things that they're saying, it's like we're just doing this because we want to help. We don't have any agenda here. It's just we see what's going on, and we feel like these are the things that we need to talk about and try to work on. But man, you just get a stone wall or
Yeah,
they're
there's
throwing
no
rocks at
agenda
you or
or
something.
personal gain. I mean, I'm giving my time, which is a very valuable commodity. You can't
Sure.
get it back. And we all agree that we're okay with the stipends being removed. It's civil service. We don't need
Right.
to.
Each one of the offices has a stipend, and
Which the
but
budget
it's not
committee
it's not a
cut.
salary, right?
No.
And so the budget committee cut it this year.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. And so
I completely
does that,
support it.
So
Does
it's
that,
totally volunteer,
Yep.
right?
So does that have to go up in a warrant article next week,
No.
or it's out of the budget?
Right, they put that as part of the budget that they proposed, and that budget committee, they worked their butts off to help the taxpayers. They really took it to heart. They understood what
Yeah, we're starting to finally get a hold of that budget committee
Yeah.
with
Right.
I
some
think because so many
fiscal
people were showing
conservatives.
up and asking questions, and they realized, these are the people we serve. We need to listen. If you're nervous about your taxes and the spending, let's figure out how we can balance it.
And so there wasn't a lot of pushback on that?
not that I know of.
I mean, I know obviously some people weren't thrilled, but they did it. And that's the whole point of collaboration, is that no matter who you are, if you're in a group and you have a mission to do something, you work together and get it done.
So that's good news.
That
That
is
is
good news.
great.
And I try to remain positive. I mean, even though I just said that, that it's a crazy thing that we're going through, I don't let that deter me in any way. And I try to remain positive. I personally think that things are moving in the right direction, from the top to the bottom, right? And I think that what we have to do now is try and get some legitimate communication going and find out where we can agree. That's just, I don't know if it's possible, to be honest with you,
Right.
but I'm certainly going to try. I'm certainly going to try, because I don't see how we get anything done.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't see how we get anything done.
So does the school board have purview over over policy at the schools? Like we've been talking about on the show, we've talked about it a lot, and that's that whole business of privacy, where teachers are told not to let parents know what's going on because they don't want children to be abused in the home, and so there's this secrecy business. Is that something that the school board has purview over, or is it really just dealing with budgets?
For me, that remains to be seen, but I think it's part of it. But I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, the school itself is going to make their policies and decide how they're going to enforce them. But I'm sure that the school board can have some influence on that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I got an email today from a parent of a former student at Goffstown High, a current one, and the list of the stuff she gave me was just pure gold for me, for somebody who doesn't really know. She was really, really not happy with the way things have gone in the schools for her. Mm-hmm. So I see myself as being able to say, hey, look, this is what a parent and a tax-paying parent sent to me. This is her. These are her issues. What do we do to help this parent out? How do we go forward with this? Because that's what I consider our job to be. That's another thing for me, is that I'm really, really, really a strong advocate for parental rights, and I don't even understand how the statement that a parent should have, authority and final say over what their child, life is up for debate. Like, I just don't even get that, right? And I've raised 6 kids. And, I saw that story about the Manchester mother who ended up suing the school because they were keeping a secret from her. Mm-hmm. She found out from a friend or something that her child was in school and had a different identity in school than she had at home. Yep. And she went to the school and said, look, this is not how I want to raise my kid. You can't be keeping secrets from me. And instead of working with her, they didn't, so she sued them, and she lost. Right. And then it went to the Supreme Court of New Hampshire, and she lost.
Yeah. The Supreme Court of New Hampshire is not doing anybody any favors the last couple of rounds here, right? With issues like that, with bail reform, these things we're not winning it in New Hampshire. We need it to come from the top down. Hopefully, Kelly's on top of it in the next couple of years. Let's talk about the select board for a little bit. The select board has purview over
police, fire, DPW,
and you negotiate contracts in there, and you can so
I actually come from the trades and working with unions, so negotiating CBAs.
So one of my big things, every time I go to a deliberative session, and unfortunately I didn't make it there this year, I was on a business trip, otherwise I would have been there because I know we need the votes. But every time I go, my biggest problem is when I look at these contracts and I see that all the contracts were negotiated behind closed doors, we don't know what happened, and then we just get this big chunk of money that we have to pay out to a union here or there, right? I don't have a problem with people getting raises. I don't have a problem with union workers getting raises. What I have a problem with is the secretive nature of the negotiations, and the fact that once it's done, once the negotiation's over, the voters don't have a say. The voters can't say, no, that was too much of a raise. Go back and do it again. That's the problem I have, is that the voters can't say no. You can do it in secret and come out with your number. Give me the big number. If that's a 20% increase over last year's contract, then I want to say no, because I didn't get a 20% raise last year, right? I went 5 years in a row with no raise. And, it's not that I don't begrudge somebody a raise. It's that if I see a 20% increase in a contract for the police union or the Teamsters or whatever, I want to be able to say, no, go back and do that again and make it more realistic to what the taxpayers who are making those sacrifices are making.
Well, I think that's what's so important.
That's a big problem for me with the select boards.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have experience with negotiating and understand unions. I know from experience, yes, it has to be behind closed doors because you're going back and forth, but the part of transparency is giving information and saying, okay, and talking to residents, saying, you know, what do you think is acceptable, talking to people, getting information, and obviously you can't give out some stuff during negotiations. It's kind of weird, but you want to make sure that you can retain those employees, but also you need to find a way to make sure you're taking care of the taxpayer because that's what's funding it. Yeah. And being more open and not just say, okay, here's the amount. Well, what is that amount and what is it going towards and what are we doing? Are we investing in more training for officers so that they know how to handle domestic violence or other issues? And what are we doing with replacements of vehicles and capital funds and all of that? So it's because I felt when I first got into this that I wasn't getting the information I was looking for. I went to school for finance. I've been in the trades, very large budgets. I've worked with project managing, fleet operations improvement. And I think if you're not explaining where you got that number and what it's going to, people just see that number and you're like, whoa, 20%, that's a lot.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
but
you've got to,
here's the thing.
You have to be reasonable.
If you break it down and say, well, that 20%, right, and hopefully it's not that much, but that includes a 4% across the board raise for everybody in the union, right, regardless of that, right? I can live with a 4%, right?
Yeah.
Because that's generally what people get, 3 to 5% raise, cost of living type thing, right? So I could, if you broke it down, okay, we finished the negotiations, the overall number is like a 10% increase. Part of it is a 4% increase for everybody across the board, and we can be completely discreet about who's getting how much and why, but it's an average of 4% for everybody,
still find
right?
out how much they get.
And then, but you know what? We had an unconventional number of accidents this year with police vehicles, so we have to replace 2 of them, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, so if you break it down with that, instead of just throwing me a number and I got to go vote and say yes or no on this gigantic increase, that bothers me.
Exactly.
And I'd like to be able to say no, right? The fire department has it down. Right, and I've seen fire departments all over the state. I've attended deliberative sessions. They come in with a spreadsheet, and I love it because I can see exactly what the fire department is going to spend this year. I can see what they got budgeted to spend next year. I can see they got a new pump truck in 7 years, and that they're already saving money for it. Right, and then that's why. I like
so
that.
Those are the capital expenses.
But then when this library committee comes to me and says, well, we want $500,000. No. Tell me what it's for.
I think it's
break it down the way the
900.
fire department did it, and then maybe I'll think about it.
Exactly. I know. And it is like that. And that's why I keep saying transparency, communication. Communication is huge. You have to communicate. And you have to give people reasons and answers why you're asking for more money. If I just knocked on your door and said, hey, can I have $100? You're like, who are you? No, get out of here. If I explain why I need it and it works and you think, yes, that's a good idea, you're more willing to give it.
And we are seeing on a national level right now what happens when there's no transparency, when people aren't looking at the books, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? They spent that on that? And it's like, so, I mean, people should be seeing that now.
We need town doge.
We need that
we also
check
have
register.
a warrant article about an efficiency audit study, which Goffstown has never had.
I know a guy named Big Balls who will come down and take care of that for us.
So, unfortunately, we're divided. A lot of one side doesn't want it. They were very unhappy that it was even proposed. I come from a world very heavily regulated by the government, and we have efficiency studies, audits. We work on SOPs, standard operating procedures, to make sure that we're running efficiently because people are paying. I mean, taxpayers and residents, their bills pay for us. So you
I
have to
think
make sure
anyone-
you're being
anyone
responsible with their money.
Who's fighting or efficiency, right? That's the new evil word, right? Oh, he's an
Blows my
efficiency
mind.
expert. Oh, he's a Nazi, right? That's what it's going to turn into.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyone who's fighting it has something to hide, right? And that is yet to be unproven,
And why wouldn't you
or
want to be more
disproven.
efficient?
right?
Do you
And I-
audit
and-
your?
but there was a lot of people that came down and spoke against this particular article and the check registers. And I didn't get the impression that they particularly had something to hide. And this is where, when I left those deliberative sessions, I was more confused than anything else about their thoughts, because it just seemed to me like their thought was just leave well enough alone. You know, like,
Right. Yeah.
We don't want
why are you
change.
poking your nose in there?
Yep.
And by asking those questions, you're doing something wrong to me. And that's the thing I really don't get, because, like Jessica says, you're just as apt to find things in a study like that are going to help, right?
Right.
Cut
Yeah.
away the things that aren't working and put your money into the things that are working, and and try to look for improvements. That's going to help everybody. So I was actually pretty sad, to be honest with you, when I left there, because I thought to myself, why? What is wrong with this? I don't get it. Like, it's why are we automatically thought of as being troublemakers or something?
Yeah, it just went to the defense.
And I don't think they have anything to hide, because they're not in the town offices. But it was
Yeah.
just like, how dare you question them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt the same way, and I'm going back to last
Sounds
year's
familiar.
deliberative session when I spoke, and I was speaking directly to the library board, and I was telling them, hey, break down what you're doing so I can understand it. They had that attitude, like, why do you need to know? Why do you need to know? But I also felt like these people, they genuinely want to help. They genuinely want to run the library. But I don't think, I get the feeling, especially when I go into town politics and when I go into these town meetings, I get the feeling that people stand up and argue because the idea was yours and not ours.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of it is.
Or they're scared of something
is,
changing.
is like you said. You see that line. Oh, they're on that side. Well, I got to come up with some reason to speak against their warrant article.
So does the town have
don't
a
know.
town audit every year?
A financial audit, yes, but not efficiency.
Not efficiency audit.
You keep stepping on my
Oh,
wire.
yeah, I'm all
So,
tied up.
okay.
but efficiency, and I said this, I got up at the town deliberative and said, efficiency it's not a bad word. It doesn't, and they,
And it's
whoever
not the
was
same
against
as an
it.
audit.
No. It's just saying, okay, where can you do better,
Yeah.
and where are you not doing good and you need to do better? So it's not saying, oh, we're going to do it and we're going to magically find all this money. We might not. We probably will.
And I think-
But there's also things like sorry, Brian. I love using this example because as I was digging into the budget and all the departments and looking through and trying to, educate myself before running, the DPW. I was at a select board meeting and they brought up that they wanted a new truck. It got, budget cut it because they just see $240,000. They don't, let's get rid of it. My brain, being in fleet maintenance, most of my career is, okay, how many engine hours? 17,000 engine hours, and it's a 2012. And then I see, our trash didn't get picked up. It's out of service. It's down. And then you can look at the cost of repairs,
Yep.
and we're losing money. And I think if you can explain that to taxpayers and say, by you saying yes to $240,000 for a truck, you're going to save X in maintenance, no downtime, your trash will be picked up on time, and it's going to pay for itself, and you're going to save money in all these other areas. But yes, you have to put some forward, and that's a part of being transparent and open communication and listening to departments and being able to relay it to taxpayers.
So I have a couple of questions. Do you have town mechanics?
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't know. That's a whole other thing. How much? What's their workload, and
Yeah.
do we outsource also, and how much are we outsourcing, and what's the cost?
Can they
I
do?
know
Yeah.
for a fact that we are having trouble with drivers, and I think that's the same throughout the state.
Yeah.
We have some turnover rate with our drivers. One of the reasons is we don't pay our drivers very well. We pay a new driver almost minimum wage. They can make more money at McDonald's, or they can make money driving in Manchester or Bedford.
And same with
or
mechanics,
Merrimack.
because I had seen one, and the person that I am with is a mechanic, and he looked at it because, oh, it's close. The pay was not even close to what you
Right.
can make everywhere else.
Right.
And that's
we
another
do have
thing.
some problems there where we do need to spend money.
Yeah, if you
in order
spend the
to get
money and you
things.
keep the work in-house, you're going to save so much money than outsourcing it.
But you have to be able to find it first. You got to
Yeah,
look
right.
at it, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of the things that they were saying against it were, you know, because this would be a nonpartisan third party that would do this. It's like, well, who are they going to be, and who's going to choose the person that does that? And then they were worried about the fact that this study, if I recall correctly, wasn't even going to be funded by taxpayers' dollars, and
Yeah,
they were
they
going to
ended
figure
up
out.
changing it.
Right.
Yeah, they were going to
Yeah.
figure out a different way, you know, to pay for it, maybe with donations. I don't know, but they were just worried about, well, we don't want somebody else paying money for that. You know, who decides who's going to pay, and does that mean they're going to have a say? And they were just looking for all these reasons
Yeah.
and conspiracies and
they
whatever.
don't say it
They
about
don't
the
argue that
financial
much
audit.
when they decide on who's going to reassess my house for my next tax bill.
Exactly.
Do I get a say in that?
Yeah.
So we had some inefficiencies in our town and we couldn't find a driver because they didn't know how to drive the stick shift fire truck. So they bought a new fire truck. It would have been
geez.
that was
Whoa.
something I discussed with them, and saying, you know, you could have
could
trained
teach
them
them.
to teach them how to drive this thing, and they
Yeah.
actually did that. And I couldn't believe it that they actually
Instead
got
of
that.
training him.
Yeah, instead of training them, they had a guy come in, and they ended up buying a new fire
So
truck.
he
for
might have had-
Who was that guy related to?
He could have had an
$400,000.
unlimited commercial
Ridiculous.
truck driver's license, right?
Yep.
And then just go and take a 4-week class to upgrade.
So let me
Oh,
just
my
back
Lord.
up a little. Is that there were times when I first came here, like over 20 years ago, that it was not a partisan position. You know, that we didn't get involved with politics, whether you're a Republican or Democrat or an independent. It was, to your point, Brian, you just wanted to fix things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the town
And to you,
elections
Jessica,
are not
you wanted to
supposed
talk
to be
to
like
people.
this.
Exactly.
And if you're, I found that, and now I'm one of the older people in town, but they didn't want any changes. You know, they, to your point, which you brought up a couple of times, they don't want changes because they want to be part of that decision somehow, some way. Which is crazy because you can't live in the past. You need to move forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have such an ever evolving landscape, this whole world. I mean, technology,
Yeah.
everything, policies, it's just, and growing. I mean, New Hampshire, there's no housing. So, you know, we're trying to figure out all these things, and everything's moving and growing.
How many residents do you have? Do you know the number? Is it
wanna
like
say it's
40?
around- Oh, it's only like 18,000, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
18,000?
I think it's somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, being impartial is very important.
Yeah.
And you can say your opinion about what you think, but my job, as I see it, if I get elected to select board, is being impartial because you have to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So in the last couple of years, we've had some shenanigans with our select board.
Yeah.
My understanding is that those selectmen have retired and are leaving and are not rerunning, or at least one of them is. But that's another reason why we need some control. We need select board members who are not going to play those games.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We had some issues with the flags on Main Street. We had
Oh, yeah.
we need to get rid of that, and we need to essentially, if someone comes to the board and asks for something that's out of control or out of left field, you know, no pun intended, that we reduce ourselves to saying, okay, the select board has a power to do this, this, and this, and we have rules and policies in place about the flags on Main Street, right? We have rules and policies about what a select board member can do.
Well, yeah, there are,
and-
and there's a code of ethics.
Exactly. This code
Yeah.
of ethics, that's important too. So I'm very hopeful that that also translates down to all the other boards, because we've had similar types of outspokenness that's not necessarily within the purview of the board that these people are on, whether it be the
Yeah.
budget committee, the select board, the school board.
Well, I
and so I'm
think-
hoping that that goes away.
Yeah, I mean, you're
here.
representing a
And,
town.
and I'm with Brian. I think we are headed in the right direction, because we are starting to get a foothold and put reasonable people in there. And but it's a slow process.
We have to remain positive. That for me is like, we have to try to remain positive, and I'm hopeful that it's going to take some time, I think, but I'm hopeful that we can start working together. Especially, like I said, for me, for school board. We're talking about our children, okay, and their futures. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about raising people who are going to be running things eventually. And so they need to know things like accountability and responsibility.
How to
and
balance a checkbook.
you know what I mean? Like but even just in their general behavior, what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you can't just say anything you want, or hurt somebody on social media. It's not okay.
Right.
Right. And that's for me, I'm really going to be trying, I might have a lot to say about the other side and how they're different than me, but at the end of the day, I want everybody to start working together, and you have to come up with common, things that we can agree on. To me, it's much more important to focus on academic efficiency and accountability and responsibility and discipline with kids. I've raised enough kids, okay? I know that not only are these things right for them, but even though they don't know it, they want it.
Sure. They want
Right.
discipline.
A child who isn't disciplined knows in the back of their mind, why don't they care? Why don't they care about what
Exactly.
I do? And so that's going to be my main goal. I have a lot to learn, so I can't speak a lot now about the policies and the budget. I will learn those things, but I'm more interested in us as adults giving examples and of how these kids should be acting to each other. And a lot of this stuff, this vitriol and everything that's going on, it's got to stop.
Well,
in my
and we
opinion.
have
It's got to stop.
we have to set the example for the next generation.
Sure.
Right.
We can't act like a bunch of hooligans and expect our children to not act the same way when they're hearing it in the house or seeing it. You have
Right.
to, be diplomatic and polite.
Kids are too
Have
smart for that.
respect. Yeah.
My father used to say to me, "Yeah, don't smoke. It's bad for you." While he's puffing on a Winston, And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay," And I started smoking when I was, in high school, and not because I felt like it was a good thing, but because everybody else did it and it was something bad to do, or what, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't really care about it. You know what I mean? It was just that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? But I never learned anything from my father saying that. It's like, okay, do what I say, but don't do what I do. Kids are too smart for that. They're not going to go with that.
So you're a fleet supervisor
Yes.
in your real life,
Yep.
and you're a farmer.
By day,
Farmer by day.
blues
We
man
love
by
our
night.
farmers. Yeah.
Yeah. Professional musician for 30 years.
What do you play?
I'm mostly a singer, but I play harmonica. And
And where do you perform in the state?
in this state,
Yeah.
really, there's not really many places
Portsmouth-
for me to play anymore. I
Portsmouth.
play Jimmy's every once
Yeah,
in a
Jimmy's.
while. That's like the most coveted room around now, for musicians. But I've got a couple of 10-day runs, 3 10-day runs in Europe this year, and
Really?
yeah. And this weekend, actually, I'm going out to upstate New York and down to Philly for
Nice.
some shows. So I was telling Jessica, I've played in Moscow. I've done shows
Yeah.
in Dubai and
Oh, wow.
Ethiopia.
Really?
Yeah, I've been doing it for 30 years and
Nice.
put out some records, and God
That's
has
awesome.
blessed me with talent, so I want to.
On the music.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How can people reach you?
Right now, I only have my candidate page on Facebook.
And what is this? Let the people know.
So my candidate page on Facebook is Jessica Putin for Select Board, and you'll see my face. And everything is public, all my posts about what I do, what I want to do, and I just hope everyone will work together and realize that we run because we care.
And Brian?
Yeah, I'm Brian Templeton for School Board on Facebook, and BrianTempleton.com for music, and
Yeah, that sounds good.
RealFoodNH.com for food.
What's the other thing you have?
What's that?
Your
What-
farm. Oh, rent a
renting-
chicken.
rent-
Oh yeah,
chicken.
Rent the Chicken. Yeah. We
Yeah,
don't
you might
enough
have seen
time
him
for
on
that.
some Rent the Chicken news stories lately.
Yeah.
So when they rent the chickens, I saw a website, you get like 2 laying chickens, and then they drop a pre-made
Coop.
coop
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
backyard.
Yeah, our coops
Do
look
you
like
have
little
the coops?
barns.
Do you have the coops? Are they like laid up?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah,
Yeah.
is people want to have chickens in their backyard, and so we bring the coop, we bring the birds, we bring enough feed to last from May to November, some treats, and if books and things if you're a first-time renter, and
What-
people
and what
do it because
happens
they
if
want.
my German Shepherd gets a hold of one? That's a bad news.
Then he
huh?
keeps your deposit.
Well, actually, you
Not that I would
you have to buy
deliberately
another
allow-
bird, really. But once again, you have to check that little box. I agree to the terms and conditions.
Well, you have our votes, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Unfortunately, I can't vote for you, but I like what you're saying. It's refreshing to see 2 people who actually want to do what's best for the people in town rather than for each other. So I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having us. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
We'll
you
have to
very
have
much.
you back to talk about the blues and maybe play a few records and
Yeah.
maybe bring some chickens in so
Yeah,
people
I'll bring
know
in
what
some chickens. I'll bring in my harmonica.
Sounds
We'll have,
great.
we'll have a good old-fashioned hoedown.
Exactly. I love it.
All right.
So next week we have one of our favorite guests, at least one of my favorite guests, is Terry Roy.
Oh, Terry's coming
Yeah,
next
he's
week.
going to talk about bail reform again and what he's doing in his committee. He's the head of the Criminal Justice Committee at the state. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again, Terry.
I've got a bone to pick with you, Terry.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, but that's what we're going to
There's
talk
a bill
about.
or two that's coming through that I'm not entirely enthusiastic about. And
That's probably what we're going to talk about.
I'm
then.
hoping you talk me out of it. I will see. All right, we'll see you next week. Again, 1732 Lakeshore Road, Wilson Hill Pistol Club. Open membership. We are one of the only pistol clubs or firearms shooting clubs in the state that does not have a waiting list. 7 o'clock, that's in 3 minutes over on Lakeshore Road. We'll talk to you next week.